Please allow Senator Black. I can't hear her. Please.
I'd like to welcome the Minister to the House today and to thank you for coming forward to discuss this issue, but I'll be honest, I'm deeply disappointed that we're having this debate yet again. It's not the first time these Houses have had to examine disgraceful, reckless behaviour by banks in this country. It's hard to believe that we're in this position again, and we know the impact and the scale of what they did is absolutely shocking. And as of September, around 13,000 mortgage holders had been denied their right to a tracker rate or moved onto the wrong rate, costing them a fortune. Many were unable to meet their repayments, and this number is unfortunately unlikely to rise. The latest figures show that 102 people lost their properties, and in 23 cases this was the person's home. So how many of these people are homeless now? How many woke up this morning in the freezing cold and the lashings of rain? It's contemptible that banks' pursuit of profit could put people in this situation. We're not dealing with a case where someone just has lost their job or a source of income during a recession, as happened to so many people over the last decade. This was purely down to the fault of the banks in question. It's also important to note that this was not just some random accident or an isolated incident. It happened across several independent banks over several years, and this appears to be systematic. It's a serious indictment of the attitude banks have taken towards customers and the culture and ethos in these banks. I often think, have they any hearts at all? Have they any compassion? Have they any empathy? How they've behaved has been disgraceful. My focus on these issues is always with the people and the families affected. We should never lose sight of the pain, hardship and distress this has caused. For example, the Joint Committee on Finance, Public Expenditure and Reform heard testimony from a man that under intense pressure over this issue had a stroke at 47, and I know my colleague mentioned this. These stories should shame us. As legislators, we need to really consider what it must feel like to lose your home, somewhere you spend cherished moments with your family and family members, and lose one, again, not because your income has dropped or you lost your job, but purely because a bank raised your repayment rates and made it impossible for you to recover your mortgage. The human aspect here, and in particular the mental health impact, must not be forgotten. I would also like to hugely commend the people who come forward about this issue and refuse to be mistreated. It takes courage and persistence given how long this has been going on. They did not have the capacity for a class action suit, but they pushed forward regardless, given the complexity of the issue. It can be difficult at the best of times to go toe-to-toe with a bank or a financial institution to highlight an injustice and get it righted. When you are inundated with legal letters, it's incredibly hard to find the time and space needed to get out from under that pressure and make your case. This is especially true for people in financial difficulty. At this point, a large number of the people affected have not gotten their money back, and I would call on the government and the banks involved to rectify this as a matter of urgency. For some people, it can mean the difference between skipping a meal or not. That's the seriousness of what we're dealing with here. In terms of resolution, we know it isn't enough to give this. It just isn't enough to just give the money back and say sorry. People have lost their homes, and I'm concerned that the redress schemes touted are short of what is expected and short of what has been raised by the central bank. Ultimately, I think we are all sick to death of situations like this, where we debate the actions of banks in pursuit of profit and the ruin this was meant for ordinary people. We need to seriously learn from this case and put robust controls in place to ensure that it doesn't happen in future. This should be the key lesson from our last serious banking crisis and from this latest scandal. We have to seriously deal with the way our banks are governed and the capacity of the central bank and the government to regulate them. It's not good enough to keep saying we must change the culture. As legislators, the onus is on us to actively make this happen. At the moment, I cannot see how people in this country can have any confidence in the state's ability to deal with reckless banking and reckless financial institutions, given this scandal and those that have gone before it. People feel disempowered. Unless we act quickly, I fear this won't change, and I urge the government to take the step needed to right it.
I ask the Minister to respond.